the meeting with just a moment of silence. Today is the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on our country. And so I think it's fitting that we remember those that were lost and all of the people that have been lost since defending our country. All right, well, we'll begin. Do we have any guests with us this morning? Any guests? Any guests? Anybody new? Really? Man, we're falling down here. All right, well, let's begin. We're going to start this morning by let's look at the folks we have online with us this morning. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning.
And we see John JWZ.
Good morning.
And Mike HXT.
Good morning, all.
All right. Good morning, Al. AE5L. Al, good morning. Yeah, I know. He may have stepped away too. We never know. Lee, good morning.
Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Peter. Good morning. Harold.
Good morning.
Did I miss anybody? Because Mark's here. And yeah, I got John. Cool. Let's go around the room. Good morning, Bill.
James, KG5LXB. Bill, AE5F. Ken, K8WGE.
Hank, K5HHQ.
Jeff, KJ7EFF.
David, KI5, QMX.
Triple A. Ron, K5RJO.
Tom, W5RG.
Mike, KE5ASN.
Kim, M5.
K5DJH.
Larry, W5LXB.
Jeff.
Jeff, 85CKK.
Chris, K5JTM.
Mark, N5HZR.
Mark, N5AZQ.
Mark and Mark. And good morning. I'm Galen, WX5MOR. All right. Well, we have a fun program this morning. We have with us Bob Heil K9EID. Hopefully I got that right. He's with us via Zoom. And Mark or Wayne, was there anything you wanted to say introduction-wise? Otherwise, Bob, good morning.
Well, hello to everybody. I hope things are good there in Oklahoma. I love being there. I was in the Ozarks for about 8 years, living near Springfield, and made a lot of trips there. Played some organ concerts there, and now because of COVID, we can't go anywhere. So hopefully, we'll get back to it. So there you go. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. We ready to kick this off, Mark?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, I got a lot of things that I can help you with, but I'll give you a couple of minutes of where I started. When I was 12 years old, my parents bought me a Hammond organ. And that was quite something because they weren't wealthy people, but I had been playing the accordion, and I didn't realize it was going to be the basis of two of my careers. I took my organ lessons in St. Louis across the street from Walter Ash. And I'd go over there and wander around for an hour or so waiting for Mom to come pick me up. I got real infatuated with all the gear and stuff, but I carried on. 2 years later, I become a professional. I was playing in restaurants around Southern Illinois, doing quite well as a 14 or 15-year-old kid. Had a 54 Plymouth convertible that I'd drive around, and I was 15 when I got that, but I had a special driver's license that I could do that from the state. But I then, a year later, I became the organist at the Fox Theater. Now, why this is important that I tell you this is that Stan Can was the organist there, and he hired me to play substitute. But there were 3,500 pipes in that organ, and it hadn't been played in 20 years. And they all needed attention, tuning and voicing. Tuning is no big deal, octave wise. Anybody could do that. Voicing, aha, that's where I learned to listen. And listening is something not a lot of people do. They just hear. Hearing is a physical process. But when we had to go through all these pipes and listen to the different harmonics and the values of the tonal construction, you had to really dig and listen. And again, little did I know how interesting that was going to be. That picture was taken in Tulsa. I played several concerts in Tulsa, and I looked to go back. But I never forgot that Walter Ash. So I went back and I got my license, and it was a technician license. I was a technician for 17 years. And the reason why I never needed to go any lower in frequency was the bands are open all the time. And when I say this today, a lot of people say, yeah, right. No, I'm serious. 6 meters was open just about 24/7. It was this greatest sunspot cycle ever. And it was just wonderful to be able to work all around the globe on 6 meters. That Harvey Wells is still with me. There it is right there. I was on the air yesterday morning. I'm on the air every morning on 3885. A lot of this, we'll talk about this in just a little bit. But I loved AM, and I still do, and we're going to talk some more about that. But the situation was that somebody's talking.
While I was there, I asked them if they had any 22 shells. They said, no, we can't get 22 shells.
You guys hear that?
I thought that was over with.
Somebody's on a telephone.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute their.
Huh. Weird. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, I think we've got it.
Okay. I hadn't been on the air but just a couple of months, and I started hearing this incredible, stupid, weird, distorted signal. I'm going, what is this all about? And the next night I listened again. He was still there in same frequency. What is this? I happened to be fiddling around. I'm new ham now, and I had an SX99. I pushed the BFO button. I didn't know what else to do. And a voice popped out. Wait a minute. 1956, single sideband, 6 meters. Whoa. So I got up the nerve to call him. Now, you understand on AM in those days, you might be on 50.1 and he might be transmitting on 50.4. That's why you hear a bunch of us old codgers, when we call CQ, we'll say CQ from K9EID tuning, because you had to go find who was calling you. And he came back to me. I couldn't believe it. Well, long story short, it was K0DGE, and he was one of the first single sideband stations on 6 meters. We found out later. And I would meet with him in between some of the shows I would do in St. Louis. He gave me his address, and I rolled up to that address, and it was KMOX radio. Larry was the chief engineer, and he took this kid under his wing and taught me how to build. And would you build me one of those? Oh, no, but I'll teach you how. And so he did. I went back to Walter Ash. I bought a Central Electronics 10B, built that from a kit. He also said, you get a grid dip meter. We're going to teach you how to use a grid dip meter. I love my grid dip meter, still have it, still use it. And he had a list of parts and a chassis, and we built a 36 meg oscillator. You take 36 and 14, what do you got? 50 megs. And I was just going crazy. I needed a lot more space in my table because I kept buying more gear. My parents loved it because they didn't have to pay for it. I was doing quite well. Only went to school a required number of days because I was really indebted into that theater organ. I wanted to put a bigger antenna, and Motorola dealer south of me, he and a construction engineer, K9SGD and K9EBA, put up a 110-foot Roan, and that's a 36-foot long 11-element 6 meter antenna and a pair of J beams for 2 meters. Kind of interesting, though. The antenna that Telerex had just come out with was a spiral array. The elements are not all horizontal and they're not all vertical. And what the situation was there, when a signal leaves your antenna, it does not stay in the plane that it left. It's always changing polarities. And when people go into big, deep fades, that is what's happening. And I was always amazed that you don't read about this stuff. I mean, how do we learn this? I don't know, because it's very important because it all has to do with phasing. We're going to get into that in a minute too. But anyway, I just kept going like crazy. I built a 6 and 2 Thunderbolt. So now I had 1.5 kilowatts on 6 meter and 2 meter sideband. And I was just thrilled. It was so much fun. I got a call from Bob Drake one day of the Drake Company. He said, you the guy that's got that kilowatt on single sideband, 6 meters? I said, yes, sir. He said, we'd like for you to visit our club meeting. We do this annually. It's a technical meeting. And we want you to come and tell us how you did it, because we found out from the ARRL as they researched things, you're one of the first 10 on single sideband on VHF. So a friend of mine had a Bonanza airplane. He said, I've heard about that place. Let's go. And so we flew off to the Biltmore Hotel, where they had taken all the furniture out of one of the floors. There was the Collins room. The West Shum was there with his Central Electronics, the first single sideband transmitter in ham radio. Carl Mosley was there, Bill Halligan from Hallicrafter, Telex there, J-Beam guys were there from Europe. It was just amazing to me that all these people, they were like celebrities to me because I had read about them in the books, QST and CQ and so on. Well, I walked into the J-Beam room, and of course I had a J-Beam up, and they knew about that. So they said, we're wanting to do an experiment. Would you like to help us? And hey, why not? So they sent over their antenna for me to experiment with my kilowatt on sideband. The antenna was 128 elements on 2 meters. It was amazing. We had a spare lot beside our house, and my parents didn't care. So we put up a 40-foot Roan with a 40-foot boom. The Motorola dealer knew a lot about phasing and all the harnesses, and we built all that. I learned a lot because phasing is a big deal, and you never hear about it. Like, what's wrong here? And so that was a huge piece of instruction for me. And I just really had a great bit of knowledge from building all of this stuff. But ham radio was my college professor. It really was. And it paralleled with my organ career. I played for about 12 years, but in 1966, I started a little music shop. It was a Hammond organ dealer, really is what it was. I didn't know anything about rock and roll. I say this and people don't believe me. In 1966, I hardly knew who the Beatles were because I'm listening to Jesse Crawford, Lynn Larson, George Wright. These were the great theater organists. And that was really what I was up to and doing. And so I sold Hammond organs, a lot of them, and I was the first guy to cut them in half. The groups that start coming in to buy them, and so that was a lot lighter. Those things weigh 300 pounds. But renting Hammond organs to the big arenas, that was a big deal because they didn't have to carry their Hammonds when they came to St. Louis. But I'm going, wait a minute. The sound systems were terrible. They were just little columns hung on the wall for a 10,000 seat arena. So I started building sound systems. The Fox had thrown out some big speakers. They were going to replace these. Those were 1932 Western Electrics. And so I got those two big speakers, and I built some other speakers for mid-range. And I had a friend who was in the fiberglass business. So we built some fiberglass horns and put some 200-watt drivers on them. Again, all of this because of ham radio. I could build things. I could do things. Well, I had a call from Kiel Auditorium one day. It said, we got this group coming in and our sound system's not going to make it. Who is the group? It was Jimi Hendrix. And so I took all this up. This was my first attempt at any kind of large concert. It was crazy because the only mixers we had in those days were just little line mixers, and they weren't very, there wasn't any EQ and stuff like that. And so that's what we had to do for Jimmy. Kind of like, whoa. And the word got out, and I was building all kinds of things. I built a 30-inch bass speaker, all kinds of people. That's a 30-inch out of a Patrician, which is an Electro Voice hi-fi speaker. And that thing went around the globe because the bass players would rent it. But all of these guys would be coming into the Kiel and around, and I was starting to look at a different life for me. We were building a lot of big systems. We built a 7,000 square foot building, had 35 people working there. It was just crazy. But that's a whole nother side for another hour or two. Where I started working for major groups, and it was, to me, a lot of fun. I by the way, I learned who the Beatles were pretty quick. That's just a couple of the tours and bands that we did. We were the first company to actually do a tour. Everybody else was doing them in Volkswagen vans and pickup trucks. I said, that's enough of this. So I had leased a 40-foot semi, had a driver with a license. We bought an old Greyhound bus, and we could sleep 11 of my roadies there. It went crazy. But to end all of this really quick, I always like to show this. That was their first tour. I was the first job. And that happens to be ZZ Top without beards. I told you it was their first tour. But I've become friends with all these people. I was with The Who for 6 years, and so on and so on. Well, during all of this, I get a call from Paul Klipsch. Paul Klipsch is the father of the folded horn. He was the father of the hi-fi movement. He wanted to come and see this multi-kilowatt audio system. Like, what kind of a freak would do that? You know, because he wasn't into anything like that. He was into efficiency and really great hi-fi audio, not big loud stuff like we had to do for the arenas. He came up to Marissa, flew his little bands up there all day long. It's like, why'd you do this? How come you did that? He said, where'd you go to college? I didn't. I hardly made it out of my senior year, and that's true. I made it by the skin of my teeth. I was only there the number of required days, because I was still playing the organ at the Fox. We had a calendar on the back wall in one of the dressing rooms that had, I think it was 86 days I had to be in school. And the other time I was working and having fun and making money, I didn't care about school. My school was my ham radio and my theater organ. And as it turned out, it was true. Well, Paul flew me down that night to his home in Hope, Arkansas. He had an old telephone exchange building that was his laboratory. And that's a picture of him with his K-horn. He built this very special speaker that it was out of wood, but this was one that he could show you how many angles are in it. It's set in the corner of your room, and your room actually become the last of the 16-foot. It was an amazing speaker, but he started teaching me things. He said, Heil, you need to know about some of the early studies of Bell Labs. And I didn't quite understand what he meant, but he's writing all these notes down. And the next 2 days there changed my life, because he gave me all these things to go find. Well, I had to go to the library. You guys and gals, you got it easy. Get on Google. what's this all about, Heil? I mean, what are we talking about here? What we're talking about is the telephone system in the 1920s. They put the telephone system together, and they had two wires from New Jersey all the way to California. And every 50 miles was a relay station. It kept the voltage up, kept all the audio the way they wanted it. Great. When they picked up the telephone and said hello, this is what they heard. It's like, what happened here? It's not very clear. It's not articulate. I can't understand the words very well. Well, what they did, they had to do something. They put 4,000 scientists on this project. You can go research this. It's out there. Bell Labs had 4,000 of them, and they couldn't figure out what happened to the telephone system. It's like, whoa. Let me change the mic here a minute. They just didn't understand why things didn't sound right, because they imported that. It's all level, equal, sounded okay in the lab. But what happened when they got out to the coast? And all the relay stations reported that everything looked good. Well, they put two guys on there. These were the two lead scientists, Dr. Harvey Fletcher, Dr. Weldon Munson. I sure hope that everyone in the room know about these two guys. These guys changed all of audio because in all their studies, they discovered the human ear is not flat, and it has a great amount to do with level. You'll notice up at the top where they have the 110, 100 dB, it's almost flat. But down at the bottom where you're listening here today, 20, 30 dB, there's the big holes in your ears, like, wow. And they also discovered this. And if you don't take anything away today, you got to take this away. What they discovered was for the human to understand speech, they needed a rise at 2.5K. Not 1K, not 10K, not 4K, but 2.5. That in all this human speech pattern is where the articulation is. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take out only one thing. This is a parametric EQ. We're going to get into that in a minute. I can change the frequency of that mid-range. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out totally. And when I do, you're going to have a very difficult time understanding an S and an F and a P and a B. The essence of sound is simply not there. It's all about 2.5. Now I'm going to put it back in. And when I bring that 2.5 back now, wow, the essence of sound is beautiful. The S's are clean. The F is clean. It's all about that 2.5. And it is an amazing thing that happens to the ear without 2.5. Without any EQ. There it is. There's no EQ. And that's what's going on in your radio. And we have a job to do here later on. So what are they going to do? There were no equalizers in 1920. So what they did is they built high-pass filter. They built a high-pass filter with a simple capacitor and a resistor. There's the calculation if you want to figure it out. That's how you do that. But the audio comes in full range. It hits that cap. Depending on the size of that cap, it goes straight through most of it. If the cap is big, all of it will go. But if you want to roll off some, and what happens to the lows that come through there? because the cap's going to bring all of it through. That's what the resistor does. It takes any of the lows and rolls those off. They also built a low pass filter. Very simple. You come in with the audio. All of it goes through the resistor. You want to dump the highs to ground, they go with the cap. Well, that was when the term equalizer was born, but it wasn't what you and I know. It didn't have knobs on it. It was hardwired resistors and capacitors. But in 1930, this genius little guy, look how young he was working for RCA. And his job at RCA was to work with motion picture theaters because the talkies came in and they were having a difficult time understanding the songs and the words. Why? Because they didn't have any EQ. It was flat like this, like many radios sound today. So what do you do about that? So he knew, of course, he was an engineer. He knew about high pass, low pass filters. So he built this little rig, built several low pass filters and several high pass, and he could switch them out and determine which ones he wanted, and he would hardwire them into the system. This was the beginning of the equalizer. However, now pay attention here. We're talking 1930, 31. Nothing, zero, nothing else happened until the hi-fi movement in 1948 to 50 on through 1960. And they had a very simple form of an equalizer. And basically they had a high pass filter and they would put a variable resistor instead of a fixed resistor for their high and low pass filters. Now understand, we're talking all of those decades, but in 1967, Langevin, who built recording studio gear, they came up with the very first variable equalizer. There's two of them here side by side, just so you don't confused. Look on the right, there's two knobs at the top, and you see you can select the frequency, and then you can plus or minus, raise or lower that by 12 dB. And that was a miracle box when that came out. And all of us in the audio business are going, yeah, because we didn't have any equalization. Equalization for me, when I had all these big systems, was using the different size of speakers splayed in the different positions and using different kind of coils on the drivers and stuff like that. We had to really work at it because we had to do it physically. Well, this allows us to turn a knob. And a year later, oh, buddy, I didn't have a mixer. Well, you saw what I had. Langevin that next year came out with a mixer. I had a carpenter build this wooden cabinet around it, but you'll see there's two panels and there's 8 channels on each one of these. This again just was a miracle because we went from what I'd shown you, just a little strip with a couple of mic inputs. Up above that, those 2 meters in that panel, that was it was a compressor and limiter. But over on the right, and a little bright light there from the shine of the spotlight. But what was that? In 1968, the world woke up. That was invented by Langevin. It was the first graphic equalizer. And the reason it was graphic is they could change things. They could not change the frequency, 50, 130, 320, so on. That was set by the engineers. All the user could do was plus or minus, but it was a miracle. You'll notice a rise at 2.5, huh? Wonder why? Well, of course you know why. But this went on and on and on. It really was something. There's so much more. I just don't have time to get into it. I came back to ham radio. After 12 years, I hadn't been on the air. I turned on my KWM2 and I'm going, what in the world did you guys do to this hobby since I left? Because this is just one of the many signals I heard. I'm going, what happened here? I couldn't believe it.
CQ,
What?
CQ field day, CQ field day, CQ field day, field day from kilowatt.
I couldn't believe it. There were so many like this, but aha, there were a couple that still had it together, but most is bassy and distorted. And I just
Thank you. Copy 3 Alpha Sierra.
I didn't understand what had happened. Well, what had happened is the import radios came in. They had no EQ. They were wider filters. They had matching microphones. The only matching was they were painted the same color. They were terrible. They are. They fooled you for decades. I said, oh my gosh, I have a job. I got to do something. And so what I did is I built an equalizer. We had never had an equalizer in ham radio. I really didn't know that. I figured somebody would have done it since I left. Nope. All the way on the radio was a mic gain. You couldn't change anything. Mic gain, that was it. Well, and the mics are bassy and tubby. They weren't articulate. I go, oh my gosh. And so I built the equalizer. I wrote an article in QST. I wanted you guys and gals to build it, but it backfired on me. I had closed that plant. We got out of building all of the big speakers. I had 35 people working in this big plant. I closed it in 1980. Well, in 82, I started getting lots of phone calls. I made a crazy mistake. I put my phone number in that article, but that's okay. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to buy it. They didn't want to, well, a lot built it. We sold the kits. So I called back 2 of my great solder gals and away we went. Equalization was up and running in ham radio. We sold thousands of these. Maybe some of you have some. Well, we fast forward to this in 1999, and I got a letter from Dr. Inouye. Dr. Inouye, ICOM, Inouye Communications. He had a picture of his station. It had one of my EQs and one of my gold line microphones. I was blown away. He figured it out too. So he said, I'm thinking of new radio. And I want to use your EQ. Well, he could have figured it out. He didn't have to call me, but it was just out of graciousness. And he wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Oh, wait, frequency-wise. 160 hertz for the low end. Where's the top end, everybody? 2.5K. You could increase or decrease. We certainly didn't want to decrease 2.5, and we want to roll off the lows. So beginning with the Pro 1, the Pro 2, Pro 3, all the way through to this wonderful little 705. If you guys and gals don't have one of these, you need to get one. Oh my gosh. Talk about a great toy. Ooh-wee. This is a 7300. Everything, the graphs, everything that the 7300 has, my equalizers in there, plus D-star and 2 meters. Why do I have it? They sent it to me because they don't build their microphones and stuff. He wanted a headset. So we build a perfect headset, not some of this junk that you see out there for handy talkie stuff. And that's what it is junk. I never got into the handy talkie market, but when I hear guys on the air with them go, oh my gosh, don't you ever listen to yourself? Well, it's matching, you know. Yeah, right. Well, this solves it because we came up with all of these little guys for Yaesu, ICOM, and Kenwood handy talkies, and it works great. But the idea was where I got into that was when ICOM wanted me to build one to made up with the special connectors that's in that baby. So that was great. The only problem was, as I started getting back and listening on the air, it's like they were still using it in the default mode because they didn't have good instructions. That really destroyed me, because here was this great piece of gear. The most important gear in your station is the equalizer. And they were in the default mode. But here it is. It's very simple. Check it out. If you have any kind of an ICOM, this is it. Actually, anything. Kenwood, Yaesu, they all have a situation where, first of all, when you sit down to a radio, what is the first thing that you do? Turn it on. But you want to set the transmitter bandwidth. It's really important. And if you're going to rag chew, you're going to do 100 to 2900. Roll off that low end, punch up that 2.5. That was pretty simple. And all of their radios are like that. If you want to do contest mode, narrow up the bandwidth, 500 to 2500. Gets rid of a lot of the bass. And we're also going to go up to the bass EQ, roll that off to -5, +5 on the treble, and man, no, it's terrible sounding. However, all of your power is going to be where you want it. You see, there are some things that I always question why some of these geniuses that are writing articles, why don't they get to the good stuff? Here's a really great description of what happens when we have bandwidth and equalization. If you're going to do rag chew, we're going to be level. We're not going to have any kind of peaks. A little bit of 2.5, that's all. But what happens if you want to do contesting, or you just want to cut through the noise? You narrow it up, as we just did there, 500 to 2500. You opened up the 2.5. That's the only open door. Where's the RF going to go when you narrow it up? Well, you know where it's going to go. It's going to go to 2.5 because it's the only open door for the RF, because you've narrowed that filter, but you didn't do anything with the power. And now we can have some really great articulate audio for that type of operation, or just any time. A lot of guys don't realize how important that is. And to close all this off, Dr. Hasegawa came to me a year or so later. He came into my booth at Dayton. He owns Yaesu. I want to do it better. I said, well, we could do a parametric. That'd be good. I'm not so fast. Why? I said, well, with the two band, as we did for ICOM, we have two controls. That's all you need to worry about. We set the frequencies. All you got to do is plus or minus. With a parametric that's in the Yaesu that I designed, there aren't 2 buttons, there's 9. And that is why the majority of people with a Yaesu are still in the default mode or really don't have it right. Well, it's so simple. And I told him education was going to be good, but you look at their graphs in their manuals, it's terrible. I designed the equalizer. I don't understand all of that. Here, it's really simple. There are 3 filters, and each one of these filters have 3 controls. And here is what happens. You set the first one, the frequency, at 200. You could set it at 100. I set it at 2 because I'm going to roll that bass off a little bit harder. You're going to level. You're going to plus or minus it. We're going to minus it. Bandwidth is going to end up being at 2 octaves. What about the next one? We're going to set it at 900. Why do you do that? Because there's something about around 1,000 cycles is real boxy sounding. And if you do this, do that to your ears, you can hear that boxy sound. And so we want to get rid of it. 900 minus 3 or 4, 2.5K at +8. That's pretty simple. Frequency level width, frequency level width, frequency level width. Very simple. But Guys just didn't know what frequencies and so on. You notice all that's fuzzed out. Why? Because every Yaesu that has the parametric, they're all the same. But the assignment numbers are different radio to radio. Don't worry about them. You got nine controls. Just go in and set frequency, level, width, and you're there. You also have to save it because they have a save button. But it's all really simple stuff. And I have a lot of information on my website. And the Yaesu is the toughest because of all the controls, but there it is right there. So you can go to my website and you can see that. That bandwidth I talked about, this is an audio bandwidth. That red one is pretty wide, but I mean, this is in audio, this is in RF. And the green one's a little narrower, and it depends on if you want that. If you're going to set it at, say, 900, is it going to reach down to 600 or are you going to keep it up to 800, that kind of thing? It's very simple. But one thing about it, we have to make sure that all the things we do are rolling things off and making it happy. Well, there are so many more things. I get into microphones and stuff, but I want to touch a little bit on the phasing thing. And a lot of guys don't realize that phasing is so important. How did Wes Shum brought single sideband to ham radio. How did he delete the carrier? How did he get rid of that? The carrier's out of phase from the signal. How did he get rid of the other sideband? How does a notch filter work? Some idiot comes flying on your signal. He don't care who you are. You hit the notch filter, he's gone. Takes him and he's gone. He's out of phase. Noise canceling headsets. How does your Yagi work? This is always a good one. Dr. Yagi, he didn't have modeling. He didn't have any of that stuff. He had a field strength meter and he had a bunch of aluminum. He cut a dipole or a driven element at resonance and started in by quarter waves, half waves in front of that. And with the right length, he could get gain. Hey, man, no batteries needed. If he went behind at different wavelengths and different longer lengths, he could get rejection because that element was out of phase. I always wanted to build a phasing array. I thought, wow, this is a big deal. I'd never be able to afford it. Yeah, right. It costs a couple $100. I went to the co-op and they had a whole bunch of telephone poles that have been cut off and rotted, but I found 2 of them that I could get 60 feet out, and that's what I did. I had 2 telephone poles. I put the antennas up at 64 foot. Downlink length was 126 foot on 75. But notice that red delay line. The remote switch, this is 500 feet from the operating position. If you switch it to the left, that's the driven. Switch it to the right, wait a minute, that's the driven. But the other one is delayed by 43 feet. It makes it out of phase. Aha. And so this is what happens. This is an amazing thing. You're going to like this. We have just completed the installation of a 75-meter phased array antenna system consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directly from east to west, we use a delay line of 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43-foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried. And just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do. Mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after you done mow it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm gonna have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it, because if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it's looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now, and
the system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
hey, Sue. Yeah, well, I see they introduced display on it, and that is their form of portable. What that is, you want to your computer.
So much to learn and not enough time to go further, but that's an amazing antenna, and you really want to get into it. And a lot of guys don't have room. One of my friends, he had I think it was a 50-foot tower, and he took an 18-foot piece of wood, and he did the 2 dipoles off of that. And it works really good on 20 meters, big time, and on 40 meters. So you just have to think a little bit, away you go. But I know we're short on time here, but there's so much more that I wanted to get into. One thing I will do with you for the antennas, this is a good half hour on its own, but you put up a dipole antenna, it transmits 2 signals. Really, the transmitted signal is a resultant of 2 rays, one directly from the antenna, but the other one is reflected from the ground. The reflected ray travels further by that distance of B and C down there. That determines where that ray is going to be. And that reflected image is so important. If you can work it out that reflected image can be in phase with the direct one. I heard about this years ago. And when I came back on the air in 56, where am I at? 76. I'd been off for 12 years. I was on 40 meters every night on 7240. That's where I came up with the idea of the equalizer, and those guys helped me set the filters that I thought it should be. But we did an experiment. We had a guy in Cedar Rapids. We had a guy in Texas. We had a guy in California. I had a guy in Ohio. And I put up a reference antenna, 40 meters. Okay, good. So every night when we'd start off about 11 o'clock, we knew what the conditions were. But every night I came on, I had a different antenna, different heights, different infed, dipoles, verticals, you name it. We were doing all kinds of things. Consistently. No argument here. We're talking science. The dipole won. Of course it did. It's a balanced antenna, and I never do understand these in-fed things because they're not balanced. What do you do with the rest of it? You have two signals. You have a ground and you have, what do you do with that? Well, you got to dipoles. But then we started in, I was at 10 feet, 20 feet, all that, different heights. What was interesting about it, I had one we finally determined that at 33 feet on 40 meters, wait a minute. Remember we talk about quarter and half with staying in harmonics? When I hit 33 feet that one night, it was better than anything. And I said, well, I'm going to get better. I'm going to raise it to 50. When I raised it to 50, it went down. It was better at 33. So higher is not better. But what else did I do? I took it to 66. Bingo. It's all about harmonics, guys and gals. It's all there. Why are we not hearing about this? We hear about, well, if you made it out of this kind of wire, it's better. Oh, that's nonsense. It's really something. This is the important thing. Because if you can get that reflected ray, and you all have it, I had one guy say, well, I don't have any. Well, yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you can get that reflected ray in phase with direct, you got something happen. When I raised that to 33 feet and 66 feet, yes. As I say, we could be here for, it's some of my favorite subjects. I love it. The other thing is building. I got to get into this because I did HamNation for about 10 years, and one of the great projects there was the Pine Board project. The last 2 years I was on. I want people to build. And so I did a very simple project. I called it the Pine Board project. This is how I started building things. You do it on wood. And back in the 20s and 30s, 40s, this is how people built things. And it works great. We build a power supply. We build a microphone equalizer preamp, 12AX7. We build a 6AG7 and a 6L6 for modulator and final, 5 watts on 40 or 75, crystal controlled, and put it all together and away you go. And what made it really happen were the diagrams. W4IQN Gene was a graphic artist at General Motors. Look at those diagrams. Oh my. They're really good. They're better than the Heathkit. If you remember what the Heathkit, they were good ones, but these are something. You didn't even need to read a schematic. You just do that. And we had over 1,000 people, and they're still building. And you're going to say, well, how do you know that? Antique, I want you to write this down. Antique Electric Supply in Mesa, Arizona. If you don't know about them, go look at their site. They have everything, all kinds of controls and knobs and this and that for new stuff, old stuff. Well, they have kits. They have the Pine Board power supply. They have the Pine Board equalizer preamp. They have the Pine Board transmitter final, and it's all there. The only part they don't have is that coil on the extreme right. What do you do about that? Well, if you want to really do it, you wind your own, but you go to MFJ. That's a coil out of their 811. They'll sell you. Maybe you don't know this, but they will sell you every part they have. Wonderful, wonderful company. It's not what people years ago when he started, but not now. It's quite the company. But anyway, we had a lot of people were still building, and it hit the front cover of QST. It was the lead article, and it really took off. I had a lot of doom and gloomers when I started. Oh, you're going to kill somebody with high voltage. No, at the beginning of each program, we talked about respecting high voltage. I learned it when I was about 18 years old and built that kilowatt. The other thing about it is the AM window. This really disgusts me. A lot of guys that have come into the hobby since the late 70s into the 80s, they don't know about the AM window. Back in when sideband came up, when Wes Shum brought it in the late 40s through the 50s, it was really wars. Again, I wasn't on low frequency, but I listened a lot. It was quite entertaining to hear these guys go crazy because you had the sidebanders and you had the AMers. And I'll reflect one thing for you. There was a guy in Kentucky that he was quite boisterous about it. He was an AM operator forever. And he went to a guy's house that was on sideband to determine he was going to get on this frequency all the time. No, he wasn't. This guy opened his door, the sidebander opened the door, and here's this AMer with a shotgun in his hand. You're going to respect us, buddy. This is a true story. I could tell you several of them, and I could name them. But anyway, a couple of them are dead already. They passed away. But that led them to get together and do a gentleman's agreement. And they all got it together that on 75 meters, 3870 to 3890 is going to be reserved for AM. See, AM is usually crystal controlled. They can't move around. You got your little Kenwood and your ICOM and whatever. You can move all over the place. Well, please respect that. And you got a lot more space than just that little, we can only get 2 or 3 QSOs at the same time. 40 meters at 7290 to 7295. So please do that. And the other thing about it is the AM carrier limit is 350 watts. Now, what we do today is we'll get our AM transmitter and plug it into a nice big amplifier and you can get some power. But 350 watt carrier. Why? Because the PEP is 4 times the carrier. That 350 watts is 1,400 watts. The sidebands are out there splashing 1,400. And so you have to be sure you understand some of this, the window and your carrier power. But hey, you don't have to run that much power. One of my prized transmitters, other than my Harvey Wells, 807, runs about 50 watts. I love it, is an ICO. It is a delightful transmitter. It's one of the best designs ever. It was better than the DX40, better than the Ranger, actually, for how they designed it. 6146. And it was a CW transmitter, about 60 watts. The ICO built. But you see up in that left picture, there's a hi-fi amplifier up there. They were a big company in the hi-fi world. And so they took one of their super duper hi-fi amps, had EL34s in it, and they took off the output transformer for an 8 ohm speaker, and they put in a 5,000 ohm transformer. You come out of the back of that into the back of the transmitter, and you have yourself one of the most beautiful AM transmitters. It will outperform some of the big broadcast transmitters. The audio is gorgeous. It's the Williamson feedback circuit, very low distortion. ICO is really great. But anyway, that just some of the things that we need to pay attention to. All of this stuff that we're talking about with the antennas and stuff is in my handbook. If you don't have this, I advise you to do this. I didn't write it, I compiled it. These are notes from many, many of my great Elmers, from Paul Klipsch and Larry Burroughs, and so many older guys that really had it together. And I compiled it. A lot of clubs are buying these by the cases and giving them to their new members and licensees and so on. It was fun. We also, you go to my website, you can download this. It all starts with the microphone. And it's really a lot of good audio information for you. But last but not least, I'm always proud to tell you that ham radio is what got me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're the only manufacturer, lots of artists, but this little company of Heil Sound is the only manufacturer. Why? They said, because you've done things that the others have not, like that console I'm standing in front of. That's that quad console I built for Pete Townsend and the Who for Quadrophenia. And the other on the backside had ZZ Top's mixer and so on. The first talk box, that's another thing we could talk about. But we got so much to talk about. I also was given an honorary PhD recently, and for a kid that just barely made it out of high school. But it's all about ham radio. It was my education and still is. I learned so much here every day, playing, building, all that. And we'll come back. What's happening now, as I said, this was number 300, I think it's 342, somewhere in there, that I've done since February of 2020. It's been wonderful because we can have these kind of things. Even if it was live, I can't do all this live. I have all this stuff here. But anyway, the clubs will come back and pick a subject and we'll focus on that. Some of them want me to come back and talk about living with the Grateful Dead and the Who. There's a guy that's never tasted beer, never smoked a cigarette, for God's sakes, never did any drugs, and running around with the biggest drug addicts in the world. But I had a soldering iron, and Pete Townsend says, hey, leave the guy alone, save the drugs, don't try to give it to him. He's got a soldering iron and makes it sound good, so leave him alone. And of course I did. And you know what? I can drive the truck. Oh, well. We have any, as you know, I have more dang fun than I'm supposed to. Any questions? I hope so. Don't be shy. Any questions?
I got one.
We got something local, but
I'm going to make this quick, Bob, because I think there's probably some other people want to talk to. First of all, we are so honored to have you. I can't believe that go ahead, folks, clap.
Thank you.
I can't believe that I'm sitting here in a room looking at you it's like unbelievable. I know you don't want to be called royalty, but I'm going to anyway. Also, on behalf of one of our recent silent keys, Conrad W7WLM, I hope he's watching this from his heavenly shop, because you and Conrad share kindred souls. I can tell you that. Loved your program. I watched a video that you made and posted on YouTube. I watched it a couple of days ago. Finally, after years and years and years of having been licensed, I finally learned how to set up my receiver, thanks to you, and just made all the difference in the world. But anyway, thank you so much for everything that you've done. I didn't know. I mean, I spent 27 years in the music electronics business and sound engineering and such, but just blown away by all your experience and your expertise. And thank you so much. Again, we are honored to have you with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's all about ham radio. That's where I learned it all. And I continue to do that. Any other questions?
Excellent presentation, Bob. I'm Kim Elmore, N5OP. We don't know each other, but I have my the first rig I ever operated, which was my dad's World Radio Lab Globe Champ 350, which I play with on AM, and the receiver, a Hammerland HQ 170.
All right.
And I know that a lot of people take out the couplets in the transmitter to try to broaden the bandwidth. But my understanding is that Leo put the couplets in there for the exact reason that you're stating, that he wanted to squeeze down the bandwidth so that the most the frequencies that carry the speech information were accented.
Yeah.
Well, and I've not done that. I've left it like it is.
Yeah. It only narrows it to about 6K. None of these guys want to do 10K with a big broadcast transmitter. No, you leave it alone. That's a great transmitter. I can come back and tell you a great story about that. I was very blessed in my life to meet people and be with people and learn with people like Wes Shum, that brought his sideband from Leo Meyerson. I was at his 100th birthday party, so on and so on. I was so blessed that that these guys taught me stuff and I was just a kid, but that's okay. I'm still a kid, by the way. I haven't grown up. Don't know what I want to do when I get big.
Well, one of the only modifications I did make was I got rid of the AX9909s in the final amplifier because they're unobtainable.
Yeah.
And I replaced them with 8643s.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. All right. I'll meet you on, I work a lot of guys in Oklahoma on 75 meters. There's a bunch of them. So we'll be there.
Lee Greenleaf, W5HLG. Pleasure, sir. I would like to talk with you for hours, just on antennas and a few other things. But I think we may have crossed paths sometimes in the late 70s, early 80s. I worked with Don Fox and Beaver Productions. I did security for him for a lot of different shows.
Oh boy. You have stories.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. But when you were talking about the antenna, and I built a thing that's an old horse fence antenna, an inverted V, and like you were saying, 33 feet, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I was just grinning from ear to ear when you were talking about it.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I every once in a while I get emails from guys say, "Oh, you're full of crap." Well, okay. If you think that this 3360, if you think frequency has something to do, the wavelength has something to do or not, and that I'm crazy, then I'm only telling about the science, and that's what I deal in is science. I learned that from my mentors years ago. And there's so many guys just spewing out whatever they like. No, it's the science of it. And you're right on. I'm telling you, you get those things at wavelengths high, you got it happening. So
and the metal as well. It's got 18 stainless steel wires in it, not copper. And I get all the purists telling me, "Oh, it won't work."
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
You know what's
Anybody else online that has comments or questions for Bob? Anyone else in the room?
I don't know, like his shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob said he was going to get on.
Love your shirt, Bob.
Well, you know why I'm wearing it, right?
That's awesome. Yes, I do. But
today
I love it.
The day is today.
Yeah, you can wear it any day, man. That's cool.
Yeah, but today starts the Route 66 on the air. Now get on. You got a week. Work all of them.
Where can we find you?
Well, I unfortunately, when I lived in Springfield, I was there for about 8 years. We left there a couple of years ago. We've never left here. This is my home, about 12 miles into Illinois from the Great Arch of downtown St. Louis. When I went to Springfield, I'd been working Route 66 almost from the beginning years ago. Springfield wasn't one of the cities on the route. Springfield is the mother. That's where Route 66 was born. A lawyer there got a couple of governors, your governor, the Missouri governor. This is way back in the 30s. And they determined where the route was going to go, but Springfield wasn't on because they never had any operators. So I said, let's do it. So it took me a couple of years to get in, but they finally had an opening, and Springfield is now W6R. And I'll just be working all of them because I'm not one of the cities. So I'll be roaming around. So just look for K9EID. I'll be some little wiki down at the bottom. Just whatever. But call me anytime. And I love talking on the air. But have fun on Route 66. And I love Oklahoma. I really do. You have great people there, and we work a lot of good AM guys, and you got 2 or 3 of the greatest theater organs in the world there. Miami has one of the best, and I was so fortunate to get to play that. I want to come down. I had plans to come down and do a ham radio organ concert. I've done several of those in California, and almost everybody that came were hams, and boy, did we have fun. Had it all planned. Guess what? You know what happened. Pandemic hit, and we're not going anywhere. So stand by. If whatever happens, you'll know it. We'll have a big ham fest at the wonderful, wonderful theater there in Miami.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
Up, we have a question somewhere. All right, hold on just a second. I got to run to the back here.
Hi, Bob. Kim Elmore again, N50P. I'm the guy with the Globe Champ 350. I'm also an amateur musician. I play the violin. I'm principal second in an orchestra. Have you done the Sanson Organ Symphony?
No, I play theater organ music. I don't do any classical music. They always tell me in the music I play too many Presbyterian fifths and sevenths. And
I have one more question. Can you provide us with contact information? I'm the president of the Oklahoma DX Association, and we're going to have a gathering at the Hammerama Holiday. I think it's October 23rd.
Make me sad. Come on, make me. I love that Ham Fest, and I can't go anymore.
Well, but would you be willing to appear remotely?
I appear anywhere. I did one the other night. It was really cute. There were three guys. They were teens, formed a radio club. They just got their license and they wanted to know if I would be able to help them. And I did a presentation, little pretty, wasn't quite high end, try to keep it simple beginning. And there were three people in the audience. Anywhere there's a microphone, I'll talk if I can help somebody. You just send me an email, K9EID at ARRL gets it.
I will.
And
Thank
I'll
you very
be
much.
anywhere you want, anytime. As I said, I'm doing hundreds of these things and I love it. We have got to share this information because gosh darn it, the handbooks aren't, the manuals aren't. All they want to talk about is buying stuff and selling this stuff.
Now, to be honest, I'm a CW guy, but there's a lot of phone operators and I think that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We got to talk about why you want one of these. The Pro 7's been the darling, but that's okay. We'll talk later.
Bob, I'll come in one more time, Leaf Greenleaf W5HLG. St. Thomas More in Norman is in the process of $1 million rebuild on an organ.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has 970 pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something else. I'm forgetting where we acquired it, but the university had a organ program that they recently discontinued.
Yeah. You live in Norman?
Yes, sir.
You know Harold?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Harold and Barbara.
Everybody knows Harold.
He's on here.
Huh?
Isn't he on here?
Is Harold here?
He was earlier.
He was earlier, yeah. I don't know what happened.
He's
W5IFN, yeah.
Tell him I still love him.
There he is.
All
He's
right.
coming back. He's coming back.
He's coming back. Okay.
You can't get rid of him.
Bad penny.
There he is.
Harold,
Hi.
Thank you, Harold.
Hi, Bob.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing lovely.
Are you taking care of Barbara?
Barbara Jean wanted me to give you a Zoom hug.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I love you guys. Sorry we don't get together more. Yeah, that's great. With this stupid COVID, we can't go anywhere.
No.
Well, it's sure good to hear you. We'll catch up one of these days on the air.
Yeah, when you make your next trip in your mobile to the post office.
Yeah, there you go. You still on 40 meters? Where are you?
7245.
Yeah. I'll be looking for you in the afternoons.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for coming back. I think about you a lot. I really do.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Yep.
Bob, I'm curious. During your presentation, how many microphones did you display for us?
How many do I display? What do you mean?
Well, I'm looking at the third microphone you have connected there. How many did you show us?
No, just two. This is the 77D. Well, I had it here from the thing last night. I didn't change it, but I can't move around like this. This is PR22. Paul Rogers asked me to build him a microphone that was very articulate because his sound man didn't know anything about equalization. That's what this guy is. But all the other stuff, that's an RCA. That's a real deal. 77D, that's a ribbon built in I think this was 1945 or somewhere along there, right after the war ended. Good stuff. And that's the ICM. That's the microphone that Dr. Inouye commissioned me to build for the ICOM. And it is absolutely wonderful. So all kinds of good stuff. And that was a PR40 that I had before. Yep, all kinds of stuff.
Very good. Anybody else?
For the guys that are on the Zoom call, I put in a bunch of links to Bob's stuff on the chat window there, including the antique electronics supply link.
Yeah. Boy, you got to
saw
visit.
that.
They have such fun stuff. Wow. Yeah. Good
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you. Hey, Bob, does it make any difference what color that Pro 7 headset is?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You held up a red. Does that make any difference? Is that the best one?
Oh, absolutely. Red is always louder.
Especially in Oklahoma.
Boomer.
Some people don't need that kind of help.
So cool.
Yeah, they should be crimson, not red.
I make a pink one too, if you're interested.
If I'd have been thinking, I'd have worn my blue one today.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? If not, let's thank Bob for his presentation. What a wonderful,
Thank you,
what a
Bob.
wonderful presentation.
Thanks. Next time I'll come back and I'll dial that up and play you a minute worth of theater organ.
Deal. See you later, Bob. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys and girls.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye for now.
Okay. I'm not sure how you follow that. But we're going to try. But we're going to try because we're going to have minutes from last meeting with Chris.
Oh yeah, have me go after. All right. Exactly. I'm gonna have to go home and adjust my radio now. All right, last month we had 37 members present in person and 11 members present via Zoom. I've got to make a change on the date on this one. All right, we also had Mike Rockney, KE9EID spoke to the club about how much they need volunteers for the Memorial Marathon this year. They, as of last meeting, only had about half the number that they needed. And there is more information on the club website about that.
And the link to the.
They look wonderful, baby.
Okay.
Eat your pancake.
All right. And then Hank gave a report on the financial status of the club. And as of last month, we almost had 200 paid members. I think this month we are over 200, if I remember from the board meeting. As Hank scurries to look. Okay, we're at 205 now. All right. VE report, we had 3 new technicians, 2 upgrades to general, and 1 upgrade to extra. On new business, we had a motion made by Mark to spend about $300 from the Red Cross Fund to buy tools and supplies for Elmer Night. During the discussion, Lee made an amendment to increase it to 500. Motion and amendment both seconded, and it was agreed to buy quality equipment during the discussion. Motion and amendment passed unanimously. We had a program, VHF, UHF dual band J poles by Ed Fong, WB6IQN. And then for announcements, we have Hammerama Holiday and Ardmore's combining Hammerama and Ham Holiday. It is October 22nd and 23rd. And the Enid Ham Fest is the following Saturday. October 2nd from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Max Westheimer Airport is having a fly-in and tour. And I believe we've done some discussion about doing a ham tie-in somehow, which will be discussed here in a little bit. And then Mark spoke about some projects with Elmer Knight to help with communications in the Norman EOC here. And then the meeting ended at 11:44.
Very good. Any additions, corrections, mutilations, spindulations, or other otherwise needed changes? Very good. Hank, tell us about the treasury as soon as I get the mic over to you.
Well, last month I did a quick recap of where we stood financially. It's about the same this month. We're not spending any money, and we haven't spent that 500 yet. But yeah, we've got a little over 20,000 in the bank, and we've got 205 members. We picked up so far in September, we picked up another 5, so, which aren't on the website. But everything's looking good, and so if they have any questions about the financials, they're on the website through August. But if you have any questions after reading them, or if you want to just call me direct, let me know. And my email address and phone number, I believe, are on the website.
Questions about the treasury? Okay, just very quickly, it's September, but here in a month or two, we'll be having elections for next year's club officers. So if you are interested, now's the time to start thinking, or if you're interested in railroading someone else, now is the time to start thinking about who you wish to railroad. We'll need a vice president, which would then become the president the following year. The other officers, they very well may want to retain their position, but if you're interested, we certainly need the new blood in the club as well. So enough about officers. I'm going to go to the back here and let's get a technical committee report.
Oh, excuse me, almost fall down here. All is up and working well. Solar activity is, causing a little higher background at times, but so far no major problems, but I guess the sun is waking up. So watch for activity. There could be some problems there. The NAT, things are working.
Any news on the in-town link?
We have been doing some testing on a couple things. So we should have some news before too long, but that is looking more promising.
Any other questions concerning the technical side, equipment, and so on? Okay, let me get back up here. Yeah, I'm making you move around, aren't I? That's good. Good. You need the exercise. That's okay. That's right, on the wire. Yeah. Yeah, or just a drone. Very good. Peter Laws, how about VE?
Mark, put up the slide, please. Mark, calling Mark. Earth tomorrow.
Yeah, he's working on it.
All right.
On
we actually had 2 candidates. One of them was successful last month. William, or I guess maybe Bill, KI5RMQ. Now he is a returning amateur. He had a conditional class license. Raise your hand, both of you that know what a conditional class license is. Yeah, I didn't think so. Back in the day, if you lived more than 100 miles from an FCC office, which there was a lot of them back then, there aren't anymore, you could go to your local general class ham, because general class hams had all privileges, all amateur privileges. Ask Vince about that. And they would request from the FCC an exam and an answer sheet, and that would be sent to them under seal. They would unseal it in your presence. You would take the exam. He would place the exam materials back in an envelope, send it back to the FCC to be graded. And then you would be issued a conditional license, which had the exact same privileges as a general license, except that you could not do the same as the guy did for you. You could not administer an exam for somebody more than 100 miles from an FCC office. There haven't been conditional class licenses since the 70s. In sometime in the 70s, because we looked all this stuff up. Me and Mr. Boyd looked all this stuff up. At some point, the FCC actually put out a memo saying that conditional licensees have all the same privileges as a general. Don't worry about it. And they changed everybody to say general in their thing. But you can actually look in the old call books and you'll see a C next to their class. Anyhow, because he was able to prove that he was a licensee, he gets credit for the general portion. He passed the tech test, used the credit slip, and now he's back as a general class. So lots of fun. Test coming up on the 7th and then in November as well. Same old stuff. The fee is still not in effect. Now they're saying, well, maybe 2022.
Yeah, really good.
Pretty weird. Hello, Harold. No reason not to upgrade your license. 35 questions, answer enough of them right, and you can have access to all of HF. That's all I have that I can remember.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else for VE in the room online? Peter, as long as you got your mic turned on, go ahead and tell us about the Siren Net.
Oh, the Siren Net. Every Saturday at noon local time, we run a Siren Net after the siren test, and we report on sirens. Different hams have assigned siren units mostly in Moore and Norman, but we also cover Noble and Newcastle. If you have a siren in your neighborhood that is not currently covered, we'd be happy to add you to the roster. It's a roll call net. We call the roll. You answer and tell us whether your siren sounded or didn't sound. The key thing being, we want to know if that siren sounded or did not sound. We don't want reports to say, yeah, I hear sirens. Well, yeah, we all hear sirens on Saturday. It's Oklahoma. This is what we do. But we need to know if a particular siren is or especially is not sounding. Other than Norman, the other cities have electromechanical sirens, some of them that rotate, and we need to know if the horn is actually rotating like it's supposed to. It may still sound, but not rotate. So we do that every noon. Weather and football permitting. Kickoff is at 6 today, so there will be a test in Norman today.
Very good. Thank you. And we'll be testing in more as well. I think I turned them on. Actually, I didn't turn them off from last week. Yes, they're going. All right. Anything else, Siren Net?
No, we're good.
Cool. Bill, tell us about the 10-meter net.
As you might suspect, we have a 10-meter net every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on 28.445 upper sideband. Been running 15 or so people. And as of yet, we haven't had any out of area check-ins, but that will come. Things are picking up kind of quick, thank goodness.
Very good. Thank you. Well, I'm going to the other side of the room. Mark Klein, if you've got your headset on, tell us. Oh, you don't have it on. Okay. Tell us about Elmer Night.
Elmer Night every Tuesday night in this lovely facility, 2207 Goddard Avenue, from 6:30 to 9. We bring in folks that are Elmers or those that need to be Elmered or mentored, whatever word it is. We continue to have 2 or 3 new folks that just show up out of the blue that have no connection to us with gear and questions and stuff. I know Jeff's nodding, and he tore apart 2 things, I think, last week that, we're here, and he got most of it back together, I think. Didn't have many extra parts, but it's a great place to bring your stuff. If you got a question, try something out, test something here, do something. We did a set up with $500 extra to get some tools, and we got some tools already purchased in place. We got a number of wonderful donations. Thank you much, Jeff. To slow down the purchase till we figure out what's going on for those. But we've got crimp sets. The idea is to get crimp sets for coax and cable, network cable and ground sets, and power poles. So those should be here if you need those. We've done a ton of work in this building to move wires around. Of course, we're a wireless organization, so we spent all Tuesday night moving a half a dozen cables around, and the guys that had their head up in the cloud, no, in the ceiling, were all nodding at me. And yes, we got a bunch of cables turned around. They've actually put a VHF antenna on the tower tonight or this week for the storm siren radio. So we're getting some stuff done there, and we get to play with a Kenwood 590 radio that just appeared. So show up 6:30 to 9, Zoom, YouTube, or here on in person.
Mark, while you have a mic, mention the AM net that you're trying to gain interest in.
Okay, the goal is we had a lot of interest in AM nets sometime throughout the week. If you're interested, send me a message. I'll put you on the list, and we're going to try to do something. Maybe we cannibalize like a 10-meter net after the net or something to start this off and figure out what people have frequencies available on AM and do all that stuff. So I've got a list of about half a dozen folks. I know Jeff said that he had a bunch from the 10-meter net that were interested in doing that. So we might kick it off on that 10-meter night and see what happens afterwards. But AM radios.
Remember that techs have 10-meter privileges, but only SSB.
Right. That's what we've got to figure out, is who's involved and who's got privileges and all that stuff. But
well, we got to get them upgraded to general. That's what we got to do.
Get the VE guy on it.
Can we call that double side net with an accidental carrier?
No.
Apparently that was heard. Okay, got it.
Oh my goodness.
But he said you delete the carrier. All right, Denny, tell us about the Gossip Net.
Gossip Net. Gossip Net on Tuesdays following the Aries Net at 8:30. And anyhow, come join us and check in and have us a good time. And anyhow, a lot of fun. We're on the 2-meter repeater. And I can run AM on any band, so just have at it. Let's go. There you go.
As long as I'm right here, Phil, you finish, Aaron.
The morning net, better known as MAC net, happens each morning, Monday through Saturday at 9 a.m. local time on the SCARS repeater frequency. Denny and Mike are doing a great job of running that net. Even though McDonald's has opened up, we're still consistently having 20 plus people to check into that net. And as long as people are interested in checking in, we'll continue to run it. One of the unique things about that net is we do accommodate a couple of stations that are cross-banders that have UHF mobile links. And if you have cross-band equipment, that's a good place to check that out, because we'll stand by and let the repeater drop and let you check out your cross-band equipment. Tuesday evening, 2000 local time, the Aries net on or about the SCARS repeater frequency. Sometimes we have that net on the UHF. Sometimes we do it simplex, just as an exercise to allow you to check out your ability to operate in those other modes. The operator's doing a great job there. We have about 5 operators on that Aries net. It is a preparedness and training drill for emergency net procedures and gives you an opportunity to check out your ability to operate in the event that an Aries emergency net was activated and you would like to participate in real net. The Aries training drill gives you an opportunity to check out your equipment and do that on Tuesday night. Can I tell them about picnic while I'm here?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, Lee, tell us about the DMR net.
Thank you, Galen. Every week we have the Oklahoma statewide DMR net. It will be on or talk group 3140, DMR 3140, which is Oklahoma statewide. And we started every Monday night at 8:15 p.m. local time. Tomorrow night, or excuse me, Monday night, I will be your host, but Mark Klein and I alternate weeks so that we how to keep it fresh. But one of the main things we always try to do is every check-in, we always try to have at least a little 5-minute segment of training. So please, if you have DMR capability, come join us. Again, talk group 3140, Monday nights, 8:15 p.m. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. I haven't been able to participate, so I don't know for sure who's doing. Are we still doing 6-meter net? Okay, is Jim still the ramrod for that? Cool. 6-meter net Monday nights, just prior to the DMR net, 6 meters, 8 o'clock, 50.200 upper sideband. Okay. Operating DX. Anybody done fun DX stuff?
Yeah, Sweetwater, Texas, check into the MACnet in the morning. Sweetwater, Texas is quite a ways.
Yeah.
Checked in via the prior repeater. He was listening to our repeater, but he had the wrong PL in there. If he had it for prior, and we could hear prior that well. Anyway, he checked in from Sweetwater, Texas to prior to us. That's quite a round.
That's a pretty long haul too, isn't it? Sweetwater to Prior. Yeah. Okay. Any other DX? DX doesn't have to be HF, obviously.
I actually been playing around on digital a little bit at the house with just a little fiberglass 20-meter antenna, and I've hit Samoa.
You were on the radio?
Yeah, I'm finally starting to get it back up.
Thank goodness.
And then Asiatic Russia and everything. But the neat part was I got my oldest daughter, who's just now 7, got her in there, and she actually made her first FT8 contact with Brazil. And she was so excited.
All right, there you go. Did somebody say, Peter, did you have something?
Yeah, me and Ken and Mike have been on 2-meter Whisper on what the heck is it? 144, 489, I think. Bopping signals back and forth. We haven't caught any other fish other than the 3 of us, but we're having fun on 2-meter Whisper mode. We've also done some FT8 as well on 2 meters. So you've got a sideband radio that works on those bands, and a lot of the newer radios do, like the 705 ad. You can join us.
All right, very good. More operating stuff this afternoon, 1 to 1:30. N0LD Randy and W0HGJ Harvey are working in the September VHF contest in our area. So if you want some more, Mark, do we have that up on our website at all?
Not on ours, but he's probably got on
N0LD. N0LD's website. Okay. So anyway, there's a also, I think, I don't know if it's on our page. Yeah, it's on our page. If you go to the SCARS Facebook page, Randy's got a map up there of where they'll be and when. And as Bob said earlier, Route 66 on the air actually started last night at 7 o'clock local, and will run through next Sunday evening at 7 o'clock local. By the way, I've already got 2 contacts. Yay, out of the big truck. I'm telling you, so I got Arizona last night, or one of the Arizona stations really weak, at least on my end, but it was apparently strong enough on his end that we got to talk a little bit about high school football, which is where I was at. And then my second contact, I blew out of the water, even out of my truck. Of course, it was the Oklahoma City station, and it was what's Jeff's called WD0GTY, I think. I was at the west end of the Moore Stadium football field, and he lives on the east side of the football field. Hey, it still goes in the log.
Hey,
it still goes in the log. All right. Anything else operating?
Just N0LD has a website, okrover.info, and it has a bunch of information about his operation. Magically, that will appear on the screen based on my voice command.
And there's the map.
So if you're interested, that's this weekend.
Okay. I'm getting there. It's on my list. Don't. I actually brought my agenda this week. Come on. Or this month. Okay, so we're actually going to go over here and make the mistake of giving Mark the microphone to tell us, or I guess it's Mark, talk about the Westheimer Open House.
Yes, Westheimer Open House is a wonderful thing. We talked about last time doing a Westheimer Open House out of this group. We got a lot of good hands in the air, and I've gotten a lot of good hands on a piece of paper that said they want to do stuff. We have a fine list of things that we want to do, including WinLink, Arden, FT8, all of that stuff, VHF, HF, all kinds of demo stuff, Morse code decoding for the non-directional beacons. We got a lot of folks that are interested in helping. We will have an organizational meeting, not Tuesday, the next Tuesday. I believe it's the 21st at Elmer Night here. If you wish to come and be part of that deal at the airport, it's October 2nd from 9 till 2, and lots of cool stuff will be there. We're going to have Grizzle's trailer, and we're going to have a pretty big radio deal that'll show up for that. So come, if you want to come be a part of it, or you want to just watch, that's fine as well. And I got one more I'm going to sneak in, which is just hit yesterday, which was September 24th. The Grizzle has come up with some kind of Norman emergency response team that they're going to do at the Norman Mall. And I know none of us here know where that's at, but ask your wives, they'll tell you where it's at. Ask my wife, she'll tell you where it's at. We're supposed to meet in front of a place called Gentleman out there. I don't know why they picked that place for us to be there, but
is that a club?
Yeah. I don't know. It's always told as Gentleman. And the idea is they're going to have 4 tables of stuff, and he wants us to be part of it for amateur radio. I have no idea what we're going to do. This came up last night or yesterday afternoon, and no thoughts being put into that. So that's the 24th. We'll probably talk about that on the 21st as well to see what we can come up with. If you're wanting to test some stuff for the airport, that's a good place to test it for that. Thank you, sirs, ma'ams.
Thank you. It's what I get for giving him the mic. You give him one and he takes 2. All right. Also, October 2nd, and more importantly, October 3rd, that's a Saturday and a Sunday, is the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon. Amateur radio plays a huge part in their logistics and their operations. It takes almost 100, 110 amateur radio operators to fill all of the positions and tasks that they have, which includes logistics through the command function. And they follow the SAG wagons or have communications with the SAG wagons, which go around and pick people up that drop out or have medical issues. They also monitor medical issues. They man relay points. They also, there's hams on the, or help coordinating the ice and water stations, all sorts of things going on. As Chris said during last meeting, they're still short. They are way short on people this year. If you have any inkling of interest, it doesn't take a lot of equipment. Does take time. It doesn't take a lot of equipment. You can go to this big, huge, long link right here and sign up or you can go to our club page and hit /marathon and you'll be there as well. Mark's got it up here. Please, please, please consider assisting with that. The sign up is online. Again, as you can see there, and they'll then contact you with more information that you might need.
There's a briefing on.
There's no point in telling anybody about a briefing yet, because if you haven't signed up, and you don't need to know about it. And if you have signed up, you should get an email, right? Very good. That was a hint to sign up, guys. Yes, there will be briefings ahead of time. And normally it's a meeting or 2 meetings, right?
September 20th. The fire station, fire training station in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. They, and do they normally have a makeup session? Normally there's another one. Yeah. Bill Lockett, go ahead.
What kind of equipment do you need?
2 meter portable, or if you've got,
Don't you need some extra batteries and a headset or something?
yeah, the accessories are always good, and you should always have power. And if you've got some means of, some of these stations you can plug into power or your vehicle type power. So yes, you've worked it before, right?
No.
You hadn't worked it before? I thought you did.
No. I got to work with Mark once, but they wouldn't let me, so.
They will pair you up with somebody else if you're new. So don't-
They will pair you up with somebody else if you're new, so don't panic, says Mark. Okay, so please, please, please consider that. If you have any questions, you can, Mark's been part of it before. Who else worked it before? Who else signed up? Okay, see some of these guys. Yeah, the more mobile command vehicle will be, oh yeah, Lee's got his hand up there online. More mobile command vehicle will be there supporting the amateur radio side of things. You will not see me. We'll have one of our volunteers out with the vehicle. But if there's somebody that wants to help him and work out of the vehicle, that might be a way to sign up too. You will not get to drive the vehicle. I'm sorry. Okay. So since we're still talking about club events, which includes the marathon and the Westheimer open house, and now Phil, you may talk about, or Denny or whoever, talk about a picnic.
Okay, Denny has invited us to a picnic on October the 9th, Saturday. That's the same day as the October club meeting. We will have that at Denny's house, or Denny's Ponderosa. We'll meet there sometime in the afternoon. We'll start cooking around 4-ish, and we'll have burgers and dogs whenever they get cooked. The club has graciously agreed to furnish the cost of burgers and dogs. We would like to have side dishes, baked beans, other types of side dishes, desserts, whatever you want to bring. You bring it, we'll eat it. You kill it, we'll grill it. So I hope you can join us. I'm sure Mark will have something on the club website as a directive to Denny's Ponderosa for that day. Any questions? Thank you.
Cool deal. All right, I've got one more thing. Many of you have heard me talk about an AUXCOM course. That's auxiliary communicator, which is a way for amateur radio to assist public safety communications in times of disaster. The AUXCOM course has finally been set. It's hopefully set in stone. Unfortunately, it's going to be virtual. It started out that way, and then we had plans to actually do an in-person course mid-October, and actually had the date set, and we were just ready to send out the invitation when we had a ComL course, which is another public safety comms type thing. And in the middle of the course, several people got COVID. And so the instructors and so on have said, no, we're not doing that. We're back to virtual. It will be October 19, 20, and 21 virtually. Right there is where the sign up is for you guys online. Sorry, it's also on, I believe I put it on the SCAR's. Yeah, it's on SCAR's website with the link. I will tell you a couple of things, and this is going to sound like I'm trying to discourage you, and I'm not. I just want to be frank with you and upfront. This is not a clubbish thing. It's not a, oh, hey, it's cool. It's not one of those deals. This is getting training to be able to be called upon as an individual to assist in an EOC environment or in a command post environment. You will not, in the 20 hours of training, you will learn very little about operating. You will learn a whole lot about how public safety folks manage incidents, how you fit into that, what your role is, so on and so forth. What you have to have, there's some prerequisites for the class. They are the online ICS courses, IS 100, IS 200. I don't remember if 7 and 8 are required. 7 and 8 are required as well. And you have to be an amateur radio licensee, any class. And here's the big one. You have to have some sort of affiliation with a public safety agency. So if you're one of Norman's emergency management, what is it they call them? Nerds. I don't know. I always get that last one wrong. So if you are interested, there's probably opportunity through Grizzle. There may be opportunity through me, but you have to have some sort of public safety affiliation. That, quite frankly, I know that knocks some people out. I don't make those rules. But the bottom line is you have to be able to be vetted because you're going to be operating in a public safety environment. You got to be vetted. And also, hopefully, if you ever get deployed, that would provide you with some workers' compensation protection. So anyway, Oxcom class, October 19, 20, 21. Yes, I realize that's during the week. Hey, we're at the mercy of the federal instructors that will be taking care of this.
How long is it?
20-hour class, 19th, 20th, 21st during the day.
Okay. And if you had it before, you need it again?
You do not need it again if you've had it. Okay. Anybody else have anything for the club? Anything I've missed this month? Okay. We're going to back up just a minute. Phil said that the club's approved money for the picnic. No, we haven't. However, we would entertain a motion if somebody wanted to make one, if the club so chooses to help fund the picnic.
I will happily make the motion to allow $200 for food towards the one.
Motion has been made by Mark Klein for the club to approve $200 to go toward food for the picnic. Do I have a second? Okay, I got several seconds. I saw Jeff, I saw Hank, back corner, probably Lee online. Okay. All right, so any discussion, going once, going last? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and or try and signify somehow online. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Very good. Mr. Secretary, please put that in the notes that we have approved $2 toward the picnic, and Hank, we've approved it. Yep, got a question from somebody, okay?
I was going to say, can we amend it to add a margarita machine?
No, bring your own.
Motion's already been passed, sorry. All right, anything else for the good of the club? Anything else that I've missed? Anything, anybody online? All right, next meeting is October 9th. Program is DX contesting, right? With Tim Duffy, DX Engineering K3LR.
Former Edmond resident.
I'm sorry, say again?
Former Edmond resident.
There you go. I do have a question. Does anybody, that's also OU Texas weekend. Anybody know if they said the time of the game yet? It's at 11 o'clock. Okay. So we'll need to make sure we get the meeting done so those who wish to partake in a little football action can watch the two soon to be desertees from the Big 12 take each other. Yeah, well. Okay, anything else? Anybody going once, going twice? Everybody have a great ham month, and we'll see you on the air.
Siren net at noon.